I want to say about Lucas Electrics, they're just as simple as can be. There's nothing more straightforward. It's just like plumbing. Plumbing, water goes in a pipe and it comes out the end of another pipe. The only difference in electrics is it's a closed loop, right? So it's just like plumbing. And if there's water can go anywhere, electricity can go anywhere, depending on what's going on, which can make things pretty confusing unless you follow the several instructions that I have here right at the beginning. And that is approaching any electrical malfunction without a wiring diagram for your car. You got a 68 MGB, you got a wiring diagram for a 68B. You got a 77B. Is it British spec? Is it Japanese spec? Is it American spec? You've got to have the correct wiring diagram for your car. I have all those, and we're gonna as soon as we're done with this electrical, excuse me, as soon as we're done with the engine book, I'm going to put together everything I've got about Lucas Electrics and MGs, which are the wiring diagrams for almost all the cars. I have a great number of wiring diagrams. You can get wiring diagrams. You can find them in the back of the manuals and stuff like that. But I've got a much better selection. Anyway, you've got to start with a wiring diagram and you've got to start with a 12-volt test light. And when you're chasing a problem, like, I don't know, your brake light doesn't work on one side of the car. Now you can follow my instruction or you can jump through and short circuit the tedious step by step. But when you're doing the step by step and doing it properly, you're using your test light and you're starting at the positive post on the battery and you're following every single connection from the battery to whatever isn't working. And if you go step by step by step, you will find the problem. Um, in the case of the brake light, if one brake light's working and the other brake light isn't working, well, you know that you've already got power up to one brake light, therefore you should have power at the other brake light. Therefore, either the bulb's bad or your golf clubs have knocked the wiring and pulled the green with purple wire apart. So I had a guy come in the shop, oh my gosh, 20 years ago, and he called me up. We were in the process of moving from Fulton Street out to Patterson, and he said my right rear turn signal won't wink. The other three do. I put it on hazards, all three of them wink. Put it on left turn, the left turn winks. Put it on right turn, only the front comes on. It won't wink up there because there's not enough current going through the flasher. He said, but all three of them come on, but that rear one won't. He said, I changed the bulb. I went in the trunk, the boot, and checked the wiring. And then he came into the shop and his whole forearm is scratched up and bleeding. Well, scabbed. And I said, what's that from? And he says, oh, I was up underneath the dash for 2 days. Well, maybe that was an exaggeration, but let's say he was up there for a couple hours, right? Scratching his arm up, reaching, looking for stuff. So he drove this car into the shop. I opened the bonnet, immediately went to the junction of the main loom and the rear loom at the rear of the right front inner fender, found the green with white wire, which was disconnected, plugged it back in, said, try it now, and it worked. And he was incredulous. He said, oh my God, how would you even know to look there? And I said, well, you told me that you'd done everything else. I listened to you carefully. You'd done everything else. And that was the only thing that you didn't mention that you did. So that's the first place I went. But when you're doing it properly, you've got a 12-volt test light and you're going from the battery. Let's say your brake lights don't work on a 77 MGB. So, I mean, if everything else works, you know that the power is good up to the fuse box. You don't have to go connection by connection. But if you were to go connection by connection, it'd be at the battery, at the starter solenoid to make sure it was good there, and then following the wire up to the key switch, other side of the key switch to the white circuit, from the white circuit to the fuse box to the green circuit. That's all hot. And then you'd go over to the washer motor. Why the washer motor? Because that's where the wire for the brake light switch goes in and back out. It's hot there. You go over to the brake light switch, but then you touch your probe on the other side of the brake light switch when somebody steps on the brakes and nothing. So you know that the switch is bad. So you go connection by connection by connection. If 13 things don't work, don't lose the tree for the forest. Just work on one. Just isolate one. Just go for one. And sometimes when you repair that one thing that doesn't work, another six things start working because the fuse was blown. Anyway, it's so important to go connection by connection by connection. So there's certain connectors in the car, and the ones that we're all used to are the Lucas bullet connectors. Those do, after a period of time, get crummy and get corroded. You can use grease in there. I never use grease, but some people use dielectric grease, which will prohibit some of the corrosion that goes on. So you've got twos, fours, and sixes. Those are the three types of Lucas connectors. If on the front of your MGB, your MGA, you start to have trouble with one light, the headlight, you shake the wiring, it comes back on. You shake it, it goes back off again. You can go for that individual single connector. You can even be frugal about this. You can get a rifle cleaning brush for a 22 round and put it in your drill and take one of the Lucas connectors and run it through, zip, zip, and clean the inside of the connector. Or you can just buy a new connector. I tell people when you've got any problem up front, you've got one erratic connection up front, just buy enough connectors and change all the connectors because that's where the elements, earth, wind, fire, and water, are available up at the front of the car, and that's what makes all that corrosion occur. So if you got one problem up there, just don't hit the one, change them all. Oh my God, I took my late wife's Toyota Sienna with 350, 400,000 miles into the repair shop because one injector had failed. They changed the one injector. I thought, well, why would you change all of them? It takes so much labor to get in there. And sure enough, about 3 weeks later, another injector goes bad. I was distressed. So don't go in and just change one connector. Just change them all. Just do it. You can clean up a bullet connector with a stainless steel brush. Just hold it with a pair of pliers and clean it just a little bit with a stainless steel brush. It's really nice to have those pliers that push the Lucas bullet connectors into the female connectors. Those things are slick. I think those are still available, and you can buy a lot of British wiring from British Wiring in Philadelphia. It's a tandem business with Triumph Rescue. So they've got a lot of good stuff. You can buy Lucas stuff from lots of places, but they've got if you want a length of wire, green with white wire, that's 4 feet long. Although I think they sell it in meters. But anyway, if you want just the wiring, you can do that. You can buy the bullet connectors. You can buy the wiring. There are some plugs. There are two-prong plugs. There's five-prong plugs. There's 11-prong plugs that plug in the turn signals and the later model ignition switches, plugs that go into the cooling system on the radiator, plugs that go into the back of the alternator. All those plugs are available from British Wiring. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn here, but I'm just sure that all of them are available. The one that goes into the ERP switch, which goes in the top of the radiator, 77 through 80. We used to call it an ERP switch because the part number was URP 1126. So it lent itself to pronouncing it as ERP. I think those connectors were unavailable for a while. They may be available again. I'm not sure. But you can get all the stuff that you need. Sometimes when there's too much wrong with a wiring loom, you want to change the wiring loom. But I know a lot of people change the wiring loom prematurely. They go, oh my gosh, all this stuff doesn't work. So fix the connectors. The wires don't go bad. Wires don't go bad. They go into the wiring loom and then they run behind the sheath, whether it's the fabric on the early looms or the tape. It's not tape, it's wrap, that blue wrap on the later ones. So you never have to cut the wiring loom apart. Sometimes I've gone into cars before and somebody's got to, use their utility knife and slit the wiring loom and the wires are all splayed out everywhere. It's like, why would you do that? It's just like wiring in your house. If a wire goes into the loom, it comes out somewhere. There are no secret connections inside the wiring loom itself. But if there's been a burned up wire, that's a real good reason for buying another wiring loom. Or if you've got a bunch of wires that have been clipped and snipped, or you want it to look nicer. But man, what a project it is to lay a new wiring loom in a car. Oh my gosh, it looks pretty simple, but first of all, you got the mechanical part of it, laying it in wherever it goes underneath all the clips and through all the holes and everything. And then you've got to connect everything up. And I want to tell you that almost always, whenever you buy a wiring loom, there's always some wires you can't make sense out of, no matter what diagram you've got. Is that because you don't understand it, or because the wiring loom isn't exactly what you thought you bought? Maybe one, maybe the other, maybe a combination of two. The wiring colors are all straightforward. The brown wires are hot unfused. They are dangerous wires, hot unfused. You don't mess around with the brown wires. That's why I hate to see an ammeter in an MG. They left ammeters in there for the TC, TD, and TF. Just because they used to have them, because you used to have them with a three brush generator. You had to watch your charging rate and adjust the switch on the dash so your battery would neither overcharge and boil dry nor undercharge and leave you stranded. But once they picked up the RB340 style regulator, then an ammeter is not necessary. You can run a voltmeter if you're so inclined. The ignition warning light is warning enough that something is or is not working correctly. The white wires are ignition on, unfused. Dangerous. Dangerous because they're unfused. There's a couple unfused circuits. We'll talk about those in a moment. The green wires are ignition on, fused. Purple wires are the opposite side of the brown wires. The purple wires are always hot, but they're fused, so they're not dangerous from the standpoint that if you short one out or something, it'll just snap the fuse. The red family is parking lights, red with white, red with green. Blues are headlamps. That's blue with white, blue with red, low beam and high beam. There's slate wires. They don't call them gray, they call them slate. And that's for the anti-run-on circuit, 1973 through 1980. And then there's the yellow wires, which are in the earlier cars, a fog lamp, like in a TD. There's a yellow with red all the way that comes down to the front of the car. That is in part of the loom if you want to add a lamp up there. Or later cars, the yellow wires of the overdrive circuit. So those are the basic wiring. And then they carry all different kinds of tracer wires. So we've got a pretty good chart. Marty may have that up on the website of what all the wirings are. Red with green, red with white, um, green with purple, green with brown, green with blue. They all have a light green with green. There's a lot of different colors, and they all have specific applications. Talk about the battery. There are three reasons the battery's in the car. One is to start the car. That makes sense. Another one is to keep the car running if you're at idle and there's too much draw. The headlamps are on, the wipers are on, the heater motor's on, turn signals on, your brake lights are on, and the engine isn't running fast enough to make enough electricity to run the car. Then the battery will provide enough electricity for stuff to work. And lastly, it acts as a ballast, a stabilizer, to keep the voltage at 14 volts. The battery is 13.2 volts. That's why they call it a 12-volt battery. Doesn't make any sense to me, but anyway, it's 13.2. But when the whole car is running, you put a voltmeter between, oh, I don't know, the fuse box and ground, and you're up at 1500 RPM or so. Whether you got a generator or an alternator, you got 14 volts available. That's what the system stabilizes at. Next guy in line is the starter motor. So up through 67 and all the way through all the midgets, we've got a crash style starter. Crude, nasty, mean. The Bendix whips forward when the starter motor starts to spin, crashes into the flywheel, chews up the teeth, starts the car. Um, the pre-engaged starters, which are now available, take the place of that, and they first of all they move forward and engage the teeth before they start spinning, pre-engaged, and that's what the MGBs and MGCs are, 1968 through 1980. Those are pre-engaged starters. Those are nice. Lots of stuff goes wrong with them. The brushes can burn out. The solenoids can get dirty. You can buy a solenoid. You can buy brushes. You can send it to your local starter repair shop. They may not choose to repair the solenoid. I used to fix those all the time. They just got to unsolder them and pull them apart and clean them up, put them back together. They'll work great for a long time. The standard rule is that anything original repaired is better than anything new. So that's not always the case. I know Moss has got a new line of Lucas, or at least stuff's in different boxes. I'm not sure if it's the same stuff in different boxes or if they've changed their supplier and there's an upgrade in the quality. I'm not sure. The generator works with the regulator together. It's a paired unit, paired assembly, paired system, so that the regulator controls how much the generator charges. When the regulator goes wonky, it can either undercharge or overcharge. You can burn out your generator. You can boil your battery dry. Doesn't happen much. You've got an ignition warning light on the dash. When you turn the key on, the red ignition light comes on. When you exceed, I don't know, 800, 1000 RPM, that ignition warning light ought to go out. If it doesn't go out until 1500 RPM, something's wrong. If it glows sometimes, sometimes you only see it at night, but if it glows, something's wrong. So that is your indicator, not a voltmeter, not an ammeter. You've just got this red ignition warning light. And in the earlier cars, well, in all the cars, it's sometimes it's hard to see in the daytime to see if it's actually on. In 1968, we move over to an alternator. Midgets didn't move over to an alternator until maybe 70, 71. And the alternators, except for 68, have an internal regulator. Again, they're paired. They've got a regulator to control how they charge. The alternators are not as strong of a unit as the generator control box is, the generator regulator, like on a MGA, earlier B. If you disconnect the battery while the engine's running, pow, there goes the alternator. If you got bad connections at the alternator, at the starter solenoid, at the battery, pow, there goes the alternator. You can go out and buy another alternator, but then again, pow, you're going to lose it again. So anytime you go in to change an alternator because it's faulty, because it's not charging, You service the battery, take the clamps off the battery, put the clamps back on, tighten it up, take the wires off the starter solenoid, pull them all the way off, tighten them up. Oh, tech call. Then from underneath, you remove the wires, tighten the nut on the solenoid, put all those wires back on, put the nut back on, and get it nice and tight. Then go up to the alternator connectors and pop the spades out of the plastic plugs. There's a little barb in there. They just deflect the barb and pull those out. Squeeze them with a pair of pliers so they fit more snugly onto the spade on the back of the alternator. I think maybe half a dozen times we'd have an alternator, we'd have a car, and the ignition light worked just perfectly, but it would go dead. It wouldn't charge because the large connector wasn't making contact at the alternator. The indicator lead was making a connection and would indicate that it was charging, and it wanted to charge. It didn't have a connection to the battery. So, and it's all these loose connections. So some people say that Lucas stands for loose, unsoldered connections and splices, but I wouldn't say that. So anyway, that's the alternator. You want to make sure that the alternator is alternator belt's tight. That can cause trouble. So a lot of action tonight. So our next one up is the ignition circuit, and that's from the key switch down to the coil and from the coil to the distributor. 75 through 79 American spec cars have got a reduced voltage circuit so that when you start the car up, you get an extra big spark. Normally it runs at 6 volts. You've got a 1.5 ohm coil, and it's running at 6 volts while the car's running. But right at startup, you get battery voltage, which is about 10 volts when the starter motor's spinning because the starter motor takes so much current. But that's 75 through 79. 1980, you go back to the just a 12 volt, 3 ohm coil. Um, there are a couple different types of distributors, point style and electronic. Within the electronic, there's either a magnetic pickup or an optical eye. The optical eyes are aftermarkets, they're all aftermarkets. The magnetic ones, those are also aftermarket, that's the Pertronics. But the MGBs had two different styles of electronic ignitions. The later one, which used a box, I don't know, twice the size of a pack of cigarettes underneath the coil, the CEI system, those are dynamite. Those don't go bad much. Those are lots and lots of those are still on the road. So that circuit is unfused, and I just want to say that you hardly ever see a problem with the wiring or anything with that being an unfused circuit. The fuel pump is also an unfused circuit. You know why? But in practice, in 50 years of doing this, working with this, I don't think I've seen the white wire that goes all the way to the back of the car, later TFs, MGAs, MGBs, midgets. I don't think I've seen that wire burn up more than a handful of times, and it's usually from something stupid. Somebody pinches the wire or something chafes against the wire or something or other. But that is an unfused circuit that goes back to the fuel pump. Next guy up on my list are the horns. The horns are always wired hot. They're hot, and when you press the button, the horn honks, except 1980. Why, why would they change it? Why in the last year of production? Why would they change the way the horns honk? But they did. So anyway, the purple's always run right to the horns, and then purple with black comes back up to the push button on the center of the steering wheel, or the push button on the dash on an MGA or a T-type, or the stalk on a 68, 69. You press that. There's a lot of current that goes through those horns, more current than anything else in the car, except for the fan motors on the 77 through 80s. Those draw more current than the horns. And sometimes the switches on the horns are like really tiny. They're really, really weeny. And if you get a high resistance in one of those switches, my gosh, action tonight. If you get high resistance in one of those switches, your horns won't honk or they'll chirp. Sometimes they'll chirp, and then you start the car up. The voltage now goes from about 13 up to 14, and now they honk. So it's always a faulty connection. You can put a relay on your horn. Sometimes that's wise. Get a wiper motor. The wiper motor on the T-types up on the top of the windshield, two speeds. Either they're too slow or too fast. They're hardly ever too fast. Moss had a real nice replacement. I don't know if they still do or not. Getting the original ones rebuilt is difficult. It's a three bobbin armature and little tiny brushes. Oh my gosh, they're just little flakes of carbon. The wiring that goes to them goes through the windshield. By the MGA, we've got a much more durable, great big field winding and a lot nicer armature in there. And you can adjust those where they stop. They can stop straight up. They can stop here. They can stop there. You can stop anywhere by changing the can on top of the motor that runs right through. I think about right through about 19, nah, through the end of the MGAs and through about that same time in the midgets, around 62 or so. Then there's a more complicated motor, a two-speed motor. Oh boy, that they put 68 through 80, and it's got a stop circuit in it. Oh boy, it's you turn it off and it grounds the motor so the motor comes to rest instantly, and the wipers don't bounce back up. I'm going to put this on mute. Um, so where was I? The wiper motor. So the wiper motor and the wiper motor switch, 68 through 80, I think there are five wires that pass between the motor and the switch. So is it the switch or is it the motor that's bad? Usually it's the motor, but you've got to be able to jump one of those connectors in there and figure out what's going on before you buy a part. The wipers should run nicely on the screen. They should park correctly. But sometimes water gets into the motor. You can take the motor out of the car pretty easily, take the arms off and pull the motor and the rack completely out of the car. And the rack is 3.5 foot long. That's just over a meter for you guys that aren't here from here. From here. Anyway, and you can take the motor apart. You can look at it. The armature always should be nice and blonde. The wiring should be nice and blonde on the armature. If it's black and stinks, it's melted. It's melted. You can get used wiper motors. You can get new wiper motors. Um, the windshield washers are push button until let's see. It's a 68, and then they put a motor in there. Those motors go bad real quickly. And those are relatively inexpensive. They look pretty nice. They work. Not much more to say about that. Then there's the overdrive. The overdrive from 62 through 80 is unfused. It's just crazy. You've got these wires that run on a circuitous route through the wiring loom, down through some brackets, all the way down underneath the car. And if or when they dead short, it causes the white circuit to burn all the way from the overdrive up to the ignition switch. It is the most stupid failure to have happen. So my warning to everyone is if you have overdrive, make sure you fuse the overdrive circuit. The easiest place to fuse it is right underneath the bonnet at the junction between the main loom and the gearbox loom. and just put about a 10 amp fuse in there. And then if it does short, with luck, it pops the fuse before it burns up all your wiring. It's just such a terrible, terrible thing to have happen. The brake circuit is straightforward. It's all by itself. The brake lights are the third of the four most important parts of the car. First of all, you got to have your brakes, your steering, your brake lights, and I've added seat belts. I've added seat belts. You got to have seat belts. So anyway, the brakes are the brake lights are the third most important part of the car. Always make sure your brake lights are working. The turns and the hazards um, start off around 1950. There aren't any turn signals. You got to use your hand. But as soon as they pick up the turn signal box, because there's only two filaments on one side in the back, you've got to use one filament for taillights, and the other filament you've got to use for brake and turn. So how do you separate those so that when you put on your brakes, all the lights in the car don't light up, or you put your turn signals on and all the lights don't flash? They've got a double pole, double throw relay in a box about that big with 8 wires to it. Fancy little thing. You can always fix them. You never have to buy a new one. You just clean up the contacts, make sure it's grounded, and you can get that thing operational. Around 1959, at the introduction of the MGA 1600, they put three filaments back there, so now we get rid of this expensive turn signal box. Keep it like that until 1968 when we pick up a hazard switch. So the hazard switch has two functions. One is to turn the turn signals on, and the other one is to turn the hazards on. So when the hazard switch is off, it turns the turn signal circuit off. And then when you turn the hazards on, it turns the hazards on and turns the turn signal circuit off. So it's most problems when you go to turn your turn signals on and they don't work at all, 68 through 80. The most common flaw in that is the hazard warning light switch. So you extend your finger nice and straight and you push it on and push it off and push it on and push it off and do that about 100 times and usually it'll start working again. No, there can be other stuff wrong too, but boy, that's the weak point in that whole circuit. You can buy a new one too, but oh my gosh, what a hassle. Plus, sometimes the lettering on the switch doesn't match the rest of your switches. We got the instruments up on the dash. We got the fuel gauge. We've got the tach. We got the uh, uh, um, temperature, and the temperature and the fuel gauge are both stabilized so that they don't wiggle. If you got an MGA or early midget, you go around a corner. You can watch the gasoline as it sloshes from one side of the tank to the other. You come to a stop and you see it moving around. But in 60, around 64, they pick up a compensated gauge. They call it a compensated gauge. Drive it with 10 volts through a mechanical device, which is a lot like a turn signal, and stabilize the voltage at 10 volts. And then the gauges move very slowly and don't react to stopping and starting and going around corners and stuff like that. But when the voltage stabilizer fails, either the gauges quit working or you get full battery voltage and they read higher than they should. So that's not uncommon. And then most of the temperature sending units, the GTR 103s and the 101s from 68 through 80 that screw into the side of the cylinder head and then have a different resistance depending on the temperature inside the engine, so that the gauge on the dash is really just a voltmeter, but it's calibrated in cold, normal, and hot. Those end up reading too high. It's been a problem for, I don't know, 15 years that the sending units do not have the correct ohms in them that they should. Everybody says that they're going to get better, and the company that makes them, which is I think in Spain, Glenn from Glenn's MG repair in St. Pete's. Talked to them, and supposedly there's new ones out in the pipeline. We've got parking lights. Parking lights are unfused until 1968. Again, take it from me, fuse your parking light circuit. Oh my gosh. Um, in the early cars, TCs, TDs, TFs, MGAs, there's like five red wires that all go up into a little tiny screw on the back of the switch, the S1 terminal, switch one. And it's you can't even get them all underneath there. It's just a real bugger. So go to Napa, buy yourself an inline fuse, put a pigtail on it because you don't want to, if you have to change the fuse, you don't want to have to crawl up underneath the dash and look for it. You want to be able to drop it down pretty easily. But put that fuse, put the wire from the fuse into the switch, and then hook the other end of the fuse into the five wires with a crimp connector. If you want to be really cool, you put Lucas bullet connectors on the end of each one and plug them into a six-way. But you want to fuse that parking light circuit. I've got so many stories about doing that. I was down in the greater Washington, D.C. area is Maryland, John DeBilius's house. He'd restored his entire TD, and he got the whole thing all done, put the battery into it. He hadn't started it up yet. Turned the parking lights on. Smoke starts rolling out from underneath the dash. He said, "Screw it." Takes the battery back out, puts the car under wraps, restores the truck in the meantime over the course of the next year. And then I went to his house to work on it and some other cars. And I said, well, the most common reason that the parking light circuit shorts, which is what was going on, is there's a problem with a license lamp. It's real easy to get the wire trapped underneath there, and you tighten it down. It pierces the insulation on the red wire, and then the wire shorts. And so I just in the beginning I took the lens off his parking light switch or off his parking light fixture at the back of the car. And in fact, he hadn't pinched the wire. He just got the wires connected to the wrong side, so it was going right to ground. So I turned him back around, plugged him in, and then we tuned the car up and drove around the block. So it's a real common problem to have that parking light circuit. Those are all the red wires. Then the blue circuit is the headlamp. So you get a headlamp switch, you turn that on, and then the wire goes to a diverter, and it either goes into blue with red, which is the dip beams, not dim, but dip, or it goes or low beam, or it goes into blue with white. Blue with white is bright. That's a nice little ditty. Further, if you look at the back of a headlamp, there's three connectors, and as seen from your side, uh, the right hand one, um, blue with white is bright is right. So blue with white is bright is right. That goes into that connector. The opposite one is ground, and the one at the top is blue with red for the dipped or the low beam. So what happened? I talked about the cooling fans up front on 77 through 80. They take more current than anything else in the car except the starter motor. They're powerful units. The British and Canadian models are fitted with one cooling fan. American spec are fitted with two. I can't tell you why. Don't know. Must be the Fed demanded it. Anyway, that's got a switch in the top of the radiator, which must be fully covered with hot water for it to work. It's just a little bimetal strip that when it gets hot enough, it deflects, makes the contact. But there's a lot of current going through that little weenie switch. And if there's that's another good place to put a relay. I don't want to over relay the car. I've already talked about putting one on the horn if you need it, and one on the cooling. That's nice. It was that putting relays on the headlights, that was kind of cool to do, but now you can get LED headlights, which don't draw enough current to ruin the switches in the dash. So um, that's it. So I am open for questions about Lucas Electrics.
John,
Yeah,
you
Tony.
forgot to mention cleaning the fuse box.
Thank you. Thank you. We do that during our complete lubrication. Take the fuse
Yes.
box off the car, sandblast it. You don't have a sandblaster? Wait till your wife's gone. Put it into a breakfast cereal bowl. Put some ammonia in it. That'll clean it. But oh my gosh, yeah, half of the electrical problems come from bad battery connections, and almost all the rest of them come from a bad fuse box. We did that, that on, like a 74B, you got four fuses stacked up and the wires just go in a certain place. And Craig Wood, one of my employees, was doing a complete loop while the owner was there. And Craig pulled the wires off the fuse box, just yanking them off, and looked at the owner, and the owner's looking aghast. So Craig says, "You know where all these wires go, don't you?" Funny. We all knew where they went, but yeah, that's a real nice thing. Thanks, Tony, for saying that. We must have
John,
another Lucas question. Here we go, Alan.
yeah, I've noticed over the years that with bullet connectors, the major problems I've had were with double bullet connectors because there's airspace at the ends to get in between the two wires, and those are the ones that rust out completely between the two sides of the connector. And I haven't had very many problems with single connectors, but the double ones are the ones that
That's it.
seem to
I
bother me.
I'd never thought about that. I've seen those break apart like that. That can be frustrating. That's where you need that 12-volt test light. You got power going in, you got power going out. Why would you have power going out on one wire opposed and not on the other one, except when you squeeze it or something or other and you get an erratic connection. So yeah,
Yeah,
interesting. Thanks.
mhm, sure.
Hey John, I got a quick question on the ignition light again.
Sure.
Can you tell me what causes it to pop on randomly? At the car's running and dropping down off speed to kind of an idle. Sometimes it'll pop on for a second and pop off, or
What
if you're
year?
sitting at idle, 71.
It just the alternator is going too slowly. It, that's all. It means that it's not charging. The ignition when the ignition warning light. Well, you got power coming out of the back of the alternator going to the battery, and then you've got a
Right.
lead which is all but the same lead that goes up to the ignition warning light, and the other side of the ignition warning light is hooked to the battery. So if the battery has a higher voltage than the alternator, then the electricity will pass from the battery through the ignition warning light and ground out effectively in the alternator, and that's why the ignition light's on. And then when the ignition light starts to come up to voltage, is it comes up to 14 volts, then it matches the other 14 volts coming up the other wire, and the ignition light goes out. But I would think that if it's like that, maybe it's correct, but there's no substitute for making sure that all those connections, especially on a 71, where the wiring can get pretty crispy
Uh,
after all these years down by the starter motors. No substitute for taking that nut off and pulling all the wires off. Be really careful because you got a battery cable that big around carrying all the power in the world. The batteries have got 120,000 BTUs in them, and you can dump all that electricity out in a flash.
yeah,
So
yeah. I've had the motor out twice in the last three
okay.
months, so those have gone back on tight.
Tightly. Okay. All right.
Yep.
So after that, it's the battery clamps and then the connections on you still have the two plugs on the back of the alternator? Or is it a
Uh,
one plug?
I
Whatever.
think it's one plug. It's a
Okay.
it's a one plug, got four plastic uh
Okay.
prongs on it.
Okay. All right. So you can always pop that apart, and just
Yeah.
squeeze that female spade connector just a little tiny bit. That's
Yep.
as much
Yep.
as you can do.
Okay, but it's not anything to worry about.
No,
Okay,
especially if
great.
you're
And I put a
running at speed at night where you can see the
eh,
ignition warning light and the headlights are on, and if there's no hint of a glow out of the ignition warning light, you're all set.
yeah, this is mainly when I come off throttle and it's just decelerating and it just like flickers on for a second then back off. Or if I'm at idle for quite a while, it may pop on
Sure, sure.
till I just give a little bit of thrust.
Yep, yep. Just means it's not
Okay,
charging.
okay. All right, and I put a question in the chat earlier about steering columns.
Okay, all right. We'll we'll
So
get to that in a bit. Well,
sounds
we can
good.
get to it now. What's
Well,
your
okay, we can do that. So I got a squeak in the steering column. I thought it was a plastic shroud around the steering column. Took that off, sanded it down. It's not making any contact. I can actually hear it inside the steering column itself. How can I lube it?
there's a there's a ball bearing at the top, little
Yeah.
tiny balls. So you can just if the steering wheel's out of the way, you can get
It,
access to that and just flood it with
okay.
oil. Just shoot oil down there. That's going to run down the inside of the column and drip on your knees or on your feet. So just be prepared for some oil to leak down there. But that's the only thing that I can think of why it would squeak. Um,
Because it
the
almost sounds like the like that hub on the wheel was making contact with the
the
shroud with the that flange on the shroud.
the brush on the you've got a center push or
Yeah.
for the horn.
Yeah, center
Um,
push.
okay, so there's a little wipe that follows a brass ring on the back of the steering wheel. That
Uh-huh.
that might be squeaking back there, especially if it
Okay.
squeaks just in one spot or something. Um, but it's
So
that's
take the wheel off.
that's as much as
Take
I
the
can
shroud,
do.
take the wheel off.
Look at my number one video. It's a two-person
Is it in
project.
resolution? Yeah, I think I saw that and then they got discouraged.
It's a two-person project, and it pops right off. George from Buffalo tried to do it himself, and
Hmm.
it's anyway. You can wreck your steering column. Wreck it if you're doing it yourself. But two people, it's off just like that. So
Okay. I'll get it,
okay,
buddy. I'll get it.
right.
And God bless you and glad to see you're up and around.
Oh,
So
hey, thank
take
you,
care take
thank
care of
you,
your health, please.
thank
We're
you,
not
George.
ready for you to leave.
Okay, thanks. All right,
Hello,
Thanks.
John. John.
Joe.
Yeah. Question. I got a 52 TD. Took it to a car show. The judge stood in front of the car and told me to turn my two blinkers on. They worked fine. He says, okay, now turn your headlights on. Those worked fine. He says, okay, leave your headlights on and turn your blinkers on. The blinkers didn't work. He says that he catches guys at the car shows with T series cars with that all the time. He says it's a common problem. Have you ever heard of that?
Sure, sure. So this is the turn signals come on, but don't wink.
No, no, they don't come on at all when the headlights are on.
Okay, so that's when weird stuff happens. This is a rule. When weird stuff happens, it's a faulty ground. So the headlights are using up all the ground that's available, and the turn signals can't get a good ground. If you were to take a 12-volt test light and go from a good ground in the on the engine, for instance, and touch it to the housing of the turn signal while your turn signal's on and the headlights are on, your test light would glow, meaning that I mean, how you're going from ground to ground, right? How can the test light glow? Well, it's because the housing hasn't got a good ground. So
Yeah,
that's
that's what I thought. I tested all that and it came back fine. And it turned out what I ended up doing is I have a friend who had some new old stock Lucas bulbs, and I replaced the bulbs, and then it worked. And he thought it had something to do with the fact that the bulbs I had in there, the uh, the uh, the nubs on them were aligned, whereas the new old stock ones, the nubs on the bulbs were not aligned. They're offset.
Yeah, but they don't change their alignment when you turn on the headlights.
Yeah, and for some reason it worked after I put the
Okay.
different ones with the different
Well, that
nubs in there.
you can make a case for that. Usually it's a faulty ground. So,
Yeah, yeah, that's what I figured first. Yeah. All right, thanks.
hey, you're welcome.
Don't they, John, don't normally the aligned or unaligned nubs on a light like that indicate a single filament or a dual filament?
Well, if you
So
look at
that you
the
don't put them in
original,
bad
if you
or
look those
different
original
brightnesses of the filament.
those original 1156s have got instead of just a round nub on the back, it's long. It's a pointy ellipse. They're
Oh,
really
okay.
long and they're pretty low profile. So sometimes, especially with the new connectors that you can get, you put the bulb in, you can't even get the bulb to turn because the little prong that comes out is interfering with the nub on the back. So you take a like a new 1156 bulb, you put on a piece of sandpaper and you scrub it so it isn't quite so nubby, and
Uh,
and then they'll make contact.
okay, thanks.
But
And ditto on your health. Glad to see you vertical. So
thank you, thank you very much. It's very kind.
Hey,
Hey, John.
Lucas,
John, this is
Rudy,
Rudy
yeah,
from Pasadena. How you
yes,
doing,
sir,
brother?
pretty good.
Glad you're healthy. Glad you're back. Quick question. You got any helpful hints? I've got a 65B and I want to run those wires from the switch for the blinkers down that column. Any helpful hints? So, so it
Turn
came with a harness attached.
the turn signal switch is separate from the column on a B. So you put the turn
Yeah,
signal switch on, and it's got a loom about that long with 5 or 7 wires on
yeah,
the end. And so there's a place on the column covers that passes through.
yep.
So you put it up on the side of the column, probably at about 9 o'clock, and wrap some black electrical tape around it just to hold it in place while you put the column covers on.
Well, it looks as if it has to go down the column shaft.
Uh-uh.
No?
No.
All right.
A big Healy or a TR3, you get a trafficator in the center of the steering wheel. That's a whole different ball game. Those are
Hmm.
those are really difficult to do. But no, just on the B, the switch attaches on the left-hand side of the column, and the wiring comes down. You put some tape around it and put the column covers back on, and then you got your green with brown and green with red and green with white and whatever else you got.
Hmm. All right. I'll take a look tomorrow.
If you got
Thank you, sir.
if you got further question about that, take a picture of it and send it to me, and I can do my best to answer. The horn is altogether different. The horn is a center push, and that's got a short piece of wire on a spring-loaded plastic thing, that nub that comes up the middle, and that's hooked to a brass ring that goes around it. That's a
Yeah,
dice. That's a lot of fun to fix.
I had my issues with that, but got that one fixed. So
Okay, all
now
right.
it's on to the blinkers.
Yep. Okay, doke.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
John,
Yes.
I just posted a folder so for you guys to access on our Google Drive. So there's some of what John was talking about tonight, like the coloring codes and common faults and things like that. And then I also put in some articles that John wrote back in 1983. He did a whole series on Lucas Electrics. So a little bit of vintage stuff for you there. So if you follow the link that's in the chat, you can get to those things.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hey, John, got a question for you.
Sure.
I've got a 74 midget and went through a 3-year restoration, did everything myself. Everything was working, and everything other than this works fine. If I have the radio on, okay, if I hit the brakes, I get like cackle interference through the speakers, but only when I'm on the brakes. So what in that system? It's got to be the brake switch, but what in the world in that brake switch would cause radio interference?
You're running regular lights or LEDs?
Um, LEDs, but they're just swap the wires in.
Yeah, okay, all right, but that's why I asked because it didn't make any sense. So I'm looking for the odd stuff, you know. But
Yeah,
then I haven't heard this before from anybody else. So you might power the radio from another source. You might get farther away from the brake light switch. I don't know where it's I don't know where you're picking up your power right now.
so the car originally came, well, when I got it, it originally, was powered, from the original AM radio, and I just pulled the power from the AM radio to power an
Okay,
FM radio. And I've had the radio since 2008, and
okay.
never had a problem.
Well,
But after the restoration, now I got this thing. It's
they
weird.
used to sell a choke. They don't call it a choke. But it's a transformer with just one winding on it, and then it comes
Yeah.
out the other side. They were called chokes at the time, but noise suppression devices. So
Okay.
so you can install those, and you can
And
also
that would go where? In line between
in
the power
in
source?
line with
Okay.
power source, and then you can
Okay.
also put a capacitor. You can put a condenser across on the green with purple side of the brake light switch
Okay.
to ground,
Okay.
and you can also put one on up at the radio. And these are all just tricks, but
Yeah.
I don't know I don't know what's causing it. So
Yeah. It's weird.
so you could take one or more things out of the circuit. You could use take the green with purple off your pressure switch
Okay.
on the in the brake circuit, the green with purple off
Yeah.
there. Put a test light on there, and then hook that up and press your brakes. Does it crackle or not? No, it doesn't. Well, that means maybe it's the bulbs, or you could just
Okay.
energize the bulbs by themselves, and from the green side of the fuse box. And does that cause the crackling? So but I'm real interested to find out. So when you get it sorted out, because I don't have,
Yeah.
I mean, I got some ideas, but
Did he
Okay.
say that it started doing this after a restoration? And
Yeah.
just a wild idea. I wonder if during the restoration he replaced the incandescents with some LEDs for
he
the
did.
brakes.
He did.
I
And I
did.
wonder if LEDs might be, they had a little transformer built in and all kind of funny things are in there. Just a wild guess. Disconnect the LEDs and put uh incandescents in temporarily and see if it still does it.
No,
Yep.
no, it was so but I could also potentially test that if I just pull the LED bulbs out,
Yeah,
that would try that.
Yeah.
but then you're
Uh,
not getting current flow.
Just
That's
keep
true.
track. You got the switch. You got the bulbs.
Yep.
So it's one or the other.
Okay.
Okie doke.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm glad to see you're up and feeling better,
That's very kind.
obviously.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John,
Yes.
inductor is the word you were looking.
What's that?
Inductor is the word you were looking.
Inductor?
Inductor,
Oh, really? Instead of a choke? Okay.
same thing.
Okay. Inductor. Oh, well, that sounds more expensive. I'd buy the choke. Inductor. The inductor, they probably jumped the decimal on the inductor. So, okay. All right. Yeah, that was real common back in the day when you had a vibrator running a 6 volt 6 volt battery where you had to get up to 90 volts to run the speaker, and so you had to have the vibrator and to run the radio. And there's all kinds of zizzing going on, you know. So yeah, anything to smooth out that current. So thanks, man. My phone's just been ringing. All right, any more Lucas questions?
Yes, John.
Yes, sir.
Uh,
Doug. Hey.
Hey, so when you're putting in a new wiring harness, how do you recommend tinning the ends when you connect underneath the screw, like for the fuse box
Oh
or
my
the
gosh.
regulator?
Oh, well, yeah, sure. No, I mean, nobody does that, but yes, absolutely. And there used to be, maybe there still are, you can get little, they're like spade terminals, but they're just flat, and you can put those on the end of the wire, solder those to the wire, and then when the screw comes down, it's hitting just the blade. It's not splaying the wire, but tinning the wire. Oh yeah, that's that's big time. That's that takes a lot of that takes a lot of time, and so you tin, so you tin the wires before you put the wiring loom in place, so you don't drop the wire in this in the and all the stuff. But then, of course, if you tin the wire, then you get in there, and it turns out the wire is 4 inches long, and you can trim it down to 2 inches, to make it fit so it looks nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, yeah, tinning the wire,
All
that's
right.
that's special.
Sounds like the clips would be better though, faster.
Those are but you solder
Yeah.
those on too. But I have seen those underneath the screws in the control box. I have seen those.
Mhm.
I don't know where you'd find them, but I have seen them. So
Well, I'll start with British Wiring.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, they're a good group. All right, thanks.
You're welcome. Lucas questions.
John, on
Yeah.
the voltage regulator, could they cause an overload and cause a fire?
Um, yes. But usually only if you're fiddling with the regulator with the cover off and you don't pay attention to what's going on. And it's not the regulator, it's the cutout. So there's two bobbins inside the early ones. The later ones, they got three bobbins because there is a current regulator. But the real critical one there is the cutout. And that cuts out the generator from the battery or the battery from the generator when the car is off. So normally the voltage comes up, and all of a sudden at about 10, 11 volts or something, those contacts uh, smack together, and then all the current that's going through there is run on another winding on the outside. So once that goes tight, it doesn't flutter. It is jammed until you turn the car off, and the voltage then reverses direction, and they pop open. So let's say that you're underneath the car, and you take the cover off of the control box because it's kind of fascinating in there, and you're looking at it, and you're pushing them, and you push the cutout. It slams shut. Now there's a direct connection from the battery to the armature. The armature starts to burn up, the wiring starts to burn up. I've seen people burn up their cars because they weren't paying attention. And you cannot lift that connector for love nor money. You got to either disconnect the generator or disconnect the battery. I suppose you could get a screwdriver underneath there, but oh my gosh. So that's about the only time. I mean, there's always these weird ones. I just met a guy. Where did I see him? Saw him at the Metro Cruise last weekend, Charlie Reinches. And he called me from someplace in Tennessee. He and his wife were driving there with their 75 MGB, and it burned up. I mean, the wire from the alternator down to the starter solenoid. I don't know. You tell me what happened. Anyway, the whole works incinerated, and he had to do some homemade wiring and buy another alternator. from Napa or something or other. And he got back on the road. He got home okay, but weird stuff does happen. But it's that cutout in the generator that causes the trouble.
Yeah, I brought the car over. I was feeling pretty good. Nice. My arthritis wasn't that bad. And I had the car in the driveway overnight. Got up the next morning, felt good. Nice sunny day. Figured I'd go for a ride. Washed the car, got in the car, turned the ignition on, pulled the starter, and had a fire.
Oh my gosh.
Uh, yes, wife was pretty fast when I yelled for her to get the fire extinguisher. She got the one out of the garage. I forgot about the one over there on the right of me in the inside the car. Got out there and I went out there and I ripped the wires out that were burning on there. Uh, it looked as if it was the generator, the alternator, excuse me, that was on fire on that part. Got the wires burned, a little blistering on the
Yeah, you
hood.
got to be real careful when you grab those, see those smoking wires and you go, "Oh my gosh, I got to do
They
something."
burned.
And you put your hand on them and you end up with a it looks like you put your hand on your Weber grill, you know. Yeah, yeah,
I grabbed the first one and then I figured, ow, grabbed the
yeah.
rag that I had in my hand on the hand, pulled them out that way. What I'm doing right now because of the arthritis, I'm trying to find a shop that's within 150 miles of Sandusky, and I'd like to see if I can get them to put a new loom in for me
Oh,
because I
sure.
don't think
Yep.
it's bad on that part.
Well,
Also, how you feeling?
Barney's got that on his MGA Guru site. Barney and Elliot have been to every British car shop or any shop that'll work on a British car across the fruited plain. And there are more. I bet there are more MG shops per capita in Ohio than any other state because there's more MGs in Ohio per capita than any other state. So
Yeah.
I'm sure you'll find a place.
How you feeling now, John?
Hey, just great. So
Can I tell you something? I know how they probably went over there up into there and run the stiff through you. When I had my heart attack, the first one or the second one, I was laying in bed. They were had two nice looking nurses come in there, and they were getting ready to prep me. And the one nurse, she looks at me, she smiles, she says, "Ah, every man's dream to be in bed and have two women come in." And at that point, I saw the razor. I said, "Not with a razor."
oh yeah.
I'm glad you're feeling.
Yep. Hey, you lose all. There's no hint of oh, what's the word I'm looking for? No, it's a senior moment. It's not the hardest.
Modesty.
Modesty. Thank you. Yep. You lose every hint of modesty. Yep. Yep. Yeah, you just do. They had to look at every part of my body for open sores. I don't remember when it was before they did the procedure. I don't remember. It was all sort of a blur. But I just spread my toes and spread my fingers and spread another part of my body too. They look for every part looking for open sores. There weren't any, but still, yeah. There's just you just do it. Yeah. It's just a factory. None of them even remember who I was. So that's kind of nice.
A little bit
Back,
like
back
going
to
to service.
back
Yeah.
to
Whenever
Lucas here. So,
Hey, John, this is Judd again.
yeah, Judd.
You mentioned a source for looms and wiring, and I just wanted to mention, and I have no ownership interest in this. I've bought some good stuff for Rhode Island wiring. You can look
Okay.
them up online. They
Yep.
have wiring looms for MGs going back to the 30s, and lots of good stuff. I don't know. I mean, they have prices, and I assume they're competitive. I don't know, but just you might comparison shop. They seem to give me good service.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. I should have mentioned them. One of the suppliers out of England is Holden, Holden. And you can go right directly to them too. for stuff. But it's sometimes just if you're just ordering $100, a small package of $100 worth of stuff, it's just easier to get it here. So Rhode Island wiring.
That's right. Rhode Island Wire. Just
Thank you.
Google it. It'll come right up, and
Okay.
they've got their front page logo has a anchor with a rope on it. I have no idea why.
I know the earlier looms with the fabric on them. I know they do those. Yep, they've been around a long
Right.
time.
So,
Lucas,
John,
questions? Yes.
This is Henry. We talked a lot about burned wires. One thing I do, and you learn the hard way when you burn once, you never want to do it again. Um, is if you're poking around or you're trying to add a new circuit or whatever, I disconnect the battery cable from the battery and then just use a small jump wire with a small fuse. So that if I do short, I don't burn the whole house down. The fuse will pop, and I'll know that something's wrong. But it's just something from experience that it's a nice way to avoid a calamity.
Understand. That's a real good idea. Thank you.
Another trick that you could do similar to that is disconnect the battery and use your little 2 amp battery tender, because it won't generate enough current to burn the car down because it can't.
Okay.
John, uh, John, I had a question about ballast regulators. Now I got a 74B, and I put an electronic ignition on it years ago, a dozen years ago, and it said to make sure I didn't have a ballast resistor in there. So I've been running a 3 ohm ignition coil, but after all the reading and stuff, I'm wondering if it would run better if I'm not sure how to test to see if I have a ballast resistor in that line.
You don't.
Is there
You
a way to
don't.
test that?
You don't. You're running battery voltage right down to the coil, and the 3 ohm coil is exactly the coil that you should have.
Well, then it must be doing the right thing, because I bought a new coil and I didn't want to destroy it. So I guess I'm okay then. Thanks for the
All
info.
those Lucas coils, there's not one mark on them to identify them. All the Lucas coils, the 1.5 ohm coil looks exactly like the 3 ohm coil. Why didn't they mark them up? Just put the ohms on the outside or something. Why didn't they do that?
Really?
But they didn't.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, you end up having people call me up and they'll say, "Oh, I got my voltmeter out and I've got 11.68 volts here." And I said, "Throw the meter away and just get a 12-volt test light. That's all you need." But in this case, you do need an ohm. You do need an ohm meter to make sure you've got the correct coil. So it's
Yeah.
only the 75 through 79s that use a 1.5 ohm coil.
Oh, cool. All right. Well, I thank you for your information there.
Yeah.
Thanks. I feel better now. I'll
Good.
sleep better.
Good,
And
good.
I'm sporting a couple of those stints myself, so I understand what you went through there.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm glad you're up and running.
Hey,
John,
so far so good. Yes.
just to mention, back at the beginning, you talked about Michigan being 2 parts, correct?
Yeah.
You forgot about the Lost Peninsula in Ohio. It's not connected. It's connected to Toledo, but not Michigan. There's Lake Erie goes around it. So there's actually 3 parts.
It's contiguous. I know it's contiguous with Michigan. You have to drive through Michigan to get to this other part. Well, chances are there's places in Maine and Washington that are kind of like that. Help me out. Isn't there a place in like Vancouver, Seattle, that belongs to one side or the other, and you got to drive through the other country to get back to your own home? That might be
And you have to
Seattle.
pay a tariff to do it.
So yes,
Exactly.
Port Robert, you have to go through Canada to get there.
Point Roberts.
Okay.
Point Roberts.
All right.
Same thing happens with the northwest angle in Minnesota. To get to Northwest Angle, you've got to go through Canada.
Okay, all right. So, but these are tiny. Yeah, okay, yeah. Thank you
Yeah,
very much. Thank you.
whatever it's worth.
We could talk about the Toledo War,
Oh, yes.
Michigan and Ohio in 1835, but but we'll leave that for another night. Yeah.
Exactly.
Hey, if you guys got your email from your weekly email from Moss today, they had a link to the history of Lucas Oil. It's a 30-minute video. It's kind of interesting.
Lucas Oil?
Wait a minute, I'm from Indianapolis, Lucas Oil Stadium. I meant Lucas.
That's what I
We're
figured.
talking.
Okay. Yeah, it's a long running company. In 1934, they switched from negative ground to positive ground. I don't know how much that the information that they had in there, but
Oh, they started when they were with bicycles and motorcycles, and they
sure.
acquired everything in England and all the way up through their whole history. I put a link in the chat section if anybody's interested.
Very kind. Thanks. Thanks. We got to get over to the chat section. Is there anything else, Lucas, that I can answer before I start on the chat? Because I see there's 79 chat questions. So some of them are Marty's, some of them are stuff I've already answered, but
John, can I
yes,
just make one point from London?
yes.
I'm a big fan of putting cutout switches on the ground side of the battery
Okay.
because so whenever I park the car up, I just switch it off because I just think I'm parking with a bomb under the bonnet.
Yes, and you can get those with keys, so that you have to put the key in, not just a switch, but a key. My daughter has one of those in South Pasadena, California, where she carries a great big plastic key and just puts it in the switch and turns it on, and that turns on that completes the ground circuit. So yes, thank you, Tim. That's very handy.
And just one other thing, I see people using those brass bullet connectors and crimping them onto the wire
No.
instead of soldering them. And that's just a surefire way. And then one other thing, I always put a cover on the hot side of the battery because I remember when I was about 16 dropping a spanner across a battery on the tractor, and that was so exciting.
What you got about 10 seconds before it turns red hot. And you
Yeah,
can't get it off because it melts into the post. Oh my gosh.
this just took the side out of the battery. So I always put a cover on the hot side, just
Okay.
for it's just habit now.
Thank you.
Yeah, John, I've been told that when you put the cutoff switch on, you should cut the hot side, not the ground side of the battery.
Most everybody puts it on the ground side.
Okay, what would be the reason for doing it on the hot side?
Well, it's just more connections on the hot side, and the ground side is safer. It's easier. The ground cable, let me see if I can rationalize this now that you've asked the question, and I can't utter back an instant response. Um, Most everybody
John,
does it on the ground side.
can I try on that? It's the same
Sure.
reason you take the cable off the ground side when you're working on anything because it isolates. After that, nothing cares. You can drop a wrench across the
Yeah.
terminals in your fuse box if you want, and it won't throw a spark
Right.
because it just deadens everything. Also, it may be, and you probably see how well they fit. Battery terminals are a little different size, positive and negative. And the thing they sell you may just fit better on the negative.
Oh,
Well,
that
depending
one
on
with the
who your
little
ground is.
with a little twisty cap. Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
The Heelys had the big Heelys have a cutoff switch in the trunk, and it's a double cutoff switch. Not only does it break the connection on the ground side, but it also brings a wire, a white with black, from the distributor side of the coil all the way back and grounds it so that the engine can't keep running even though the battery's disconnected. And how could that happen anyway? Well, because the generator and control box are still making 14 volts. So,
I saw a cool thing on Amazon the other day. It's a remote control battery disconnect. It's about it's about 30 bucks.
what a conflict in technology.
Oh yeah, it's about 30 bucks. They give you a little key fob like in a car, and it's a unit that fits right on top of the battery.
So what happens when the guy beside you has the same one you've got and you're in a drag race, except he remembers that he can just shut you down?
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
my
Shut you
wind
down.
it up, blow it out.
Oh my
Shut you
gosh.
down.
Shut you down.
A battery
Hey, John,
controlled a remote battery cutoff switch. Oh my gosh. Oh
amazing.
wait, what? Let's take it one step further. You work it from your phone, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah, and
I gotta start on this chat stuff here. I'll make another quick pitch if you haven't made a contribution in a while. It would be really nice. It'd be really
Yes, I was going to say my grandmother was a Lucas. So, but quite aside from that, my mechanic here,
her surname was Lucas?
yes, yes, her maiden name was Lucas,
Very cool.
and she lived in Coventry. So, but
Hey,
aside from that, so quite aside from that, I was going to say that my mechanic installed a battery cutoff switch in the kick-up board in the back of my MGB. So when I leave the car, I just take out the key, turn off the battery, and it's like an anti-theft device.
yes.
Works great. And the other thing is he wired it in specifically so that you could still have the trickle charger, running and charging the battery.
Okay.
So, and it works just great.
My
John, went through 3 ignition.
Sorry?
Oh, go ahead.
my daughter's car also has a fuel pump switch, so that if you're able to get through the battery cutoff switch, and if you're able to smash the ignition switch off, so you can steer the car, you're only going to get a quarter mile down the road until it runs out of gas. And at that point, you're not going to climb out of the car and repair it. You're going to run away. So, yeah, yeah. I've got to get to the chat section here. So, Tony Wisely, anybody remember good old Rusty Jones? No, I don't remember. Tony? Are you still on? Who's Rusty Jones?
They were Chrysler, kind of like Z-Bart, same thing.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Thanks. Just a second. I got to working with my computer here. Or here we go. Okay. So, all right. Happy 106 Zoom. Thank you, John. So glad to see you're well. 100% better. Yep. Marty's got a PayPal button on here. Thank you, Marty. Um, uh, denial is Denial is not just the name of a river. If you ever experience chest pain or pressure, call 911. Thank you very much. Yes, yes, absolutely. Um, just a moment here. John, I'm glad you're feeling well. Thank you very much. I wouldn't be surprised. Oh, if we had someone from Vietnam, I'd be surprised. Um, Um, Doug Clark said they had over 400 British cars, 75% vintage and 25% modern at the British Car Festival. So that's tremendous. Glad to see her up. Don't know if you mentioned, but the Chicagoland website's got a lot of wiring diagrams. So that's yep. Jim Nuznoff put that in. That's really good. Dielectric grease does not conduct electricity. not the best choice inside connections. Good for rubber and waterproofing. So I never put dielectric grease on. It just rubs me the wrong way. It's like, why would you put grease on a connection? So I've got a fun question about
Keeps the water
appropriate.
out.
Yep. Okay. All right. Yep. I got a fun question about an appropriate fluid for an MGB GT 78 rear end, given the challenge of finding GL4 oils. Last time I was in Napa, I could still find GL4 8090, and some other people have uh, and the problem with the GL5 oil is that supposedly it's not good for yellow metal, for brass, and there is some brass in the differential, not much.
Yeah, this came up, John, because I was going someplace in town here in London, Ontario, to get some oil with zinc additive, some of the Kendall oil. And
Okay.
I was chatting with the guy there, and he said, "Oh yeah, a lot of guys make the mistake and they buy GL5 oil for their classic cars, and that's bad on the yellow metals." And I said, "Oh well, I got some, Castrol 8090. I'm not sure." Of course, I went home and it says GL5. So I looked, and he said you should use GL1. Well, I looked at it. Of course, GL1 is not good for hypoid rear ends. GL4 is. And so I started looking around. I even wrote to Castrol, who said they make Castrol Classic EP90, which I think is what Moss sells. But I started looking around locally. Anyways, I got some stuff from Napa. I haven't used it yet. I think Napa's stuff is made by Valvoline, and it's 8090, but it's rated GL4, GL5. So it's supposedly good for hypoid rear ends, but the question is, does it still have the sulfur problem that attacks the yellow metals? So it's unclear, and maybe I should just contact Moss or do something like that. But I only changed the oil a couple of years ago. You might remember I built a handy dandy plug remover out of a 6-inch bolt. And so I'm happy to use that again, and the oil won't be all that dirty, I hope. But obviously, I don't want oil that's going to wear down the thrust washers or cup bearings or anything. So
We should do one of these Zoom sessions about not just lubricants, but everything about oils and brake fluids and gasolines and waters and antifreeze. Oh, there's a jillion antifreezes now, and I don't know any of them except ethylene glycol. So anyway, but we can
And
still
of course,
find
they
the.
have synthetic now or regular. So I'll keep plugging away at
Okay.
it. But the 4 or 5 is probably better than the 5. And I'll just say very briefly that after a year, I think it was about 53 weeks of having my car, on plastic ramps, trying to get the clutch hose done, because a year ago my slave cylinder went coming back from a show. The thing that finally did it, I finally bit the bullet, just cut through the old clutch hose so I could put a deep socket on it, put a rattle gun on it, got the two nuts apart, and it was smooth sailing from there until I had my wife bleeding the clutch for me by pushing the pedal as I was removing the little fork from it so that I could try and push it in and get all the air out. Well, the new slave cylinders that they sell, the cheap ones, instead of just having one sort of disc that goes back and forth along the inside of the piston, has two pieces, including like a little plug. And if you push it, it can actually roll sideways.
Oh
So it
gosh.
wasn't able to go back in. So I had to pull the top off, reset it, push it in. But by doing it, I was able to get all of the air out. And I've been driving the car just about every day since then to make up for lost time. But cutting through the hose, which is something that I was sort of didn't want to do just in case, but that ultimately did it.
Well,
So
and then on
thanks
top
for getting
of all
back on the
that,
road.
that's a British fitting on the underside. It's not an American.
Yeah.
It's not even an American fitting. So yeah, yeah.
And
So,
John, like everybody's saying, it's good to see you doing well. Take good care of
oh,
yourself.
thank you. Thanks very much.
Just let me mention that Penn grade and driven racing oil make GL4 gear oil.
Pen grade and
Pen grade driven racing oil.
driven.
You can
Okay.
driven.
You can
buy
find,
them on
you
the
can always
website.
find the stuff on Amazon, right? I mean,
Well, maybe. I bought it directly from the manufacturer,
okay.
but yeah.
Okay.
Those are if they make it.
Thank you.
And
Thanks.
good to see you, John.
Thank you. Bob Whitfield says, I've got a question on how to adjust a TD voltage regulator. Bob, are you still on?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Yep. So the voltage regulator, you can either follow the instructions in the workshop manual, which are 3 pages of like what are they trying to do, or you can put a voltmeter between, oh, say the control box and ground, like A on the control box, or maybe go to the fuse box and ground. Turn the headlights on, bring the thing up to 1500 RPM, and then you can adjust the screw on the back side of the left-hand bobbin as you're facing it, and that's the voltage regulator. Just dial it into 14 volts.
Okay, I've actually done all that. I had some issues with charging. Had an original Lucas generator in there that I thought was faulty, replaced it with a new one, which of course crapped out immediately, put the old Lucas back in, followed your video on gutting and putting a new set of guts in the old housing.
Okay.
Okay. Everything runs beautiful. My ammeter is now indicating that I have great charging. And the ignition red light comes on when I turn the key. Now I'm idling about 900 and it will not cut out. The red light will not come on until I get down to about 600. Then it comes on very dimly. My question is, am I at risk of overcharging my battery? Or I've tried to adjust everything. I've got the voltage side correctly calibrated into 14.1.
That's good. That should be good. But on the other hand, if the ammeter is always charging
It
considerably,
isn't.
I mean,
No, it isn't. It'll go
then
negative when I'm.
then you're fine. Then you're fine.
So even though the light doesn't come on or it comes on real dimly, I'm probably not in jeopardy of overcharging.
Correct.
All right, that's all I needed to know. I didn't want to blow the
Okay.
battery up.
All right.
And I really appreciated that video. Following that step by step was intimidating. I didn't want to rip a vintage regulator apart and then, have to find, I want to stay original, and those things are pricey.
Oh yeah, yeah. But you can, you just buy buy the new one and cut, take it apart, and you just, well, anyway, you know what to do. So yeah, I
Yeah,
get it.
I did that, and the success was because of your video, so thank you.
You're very welcome. All right, Tony Rosello says, how can you test for the amount of amps coming out of the alternator? Probably by putting an ammeter between the battery post and the battery clamp, and starting it up and checking it. But then, Tony, why do you even want to know? Tony's not here yet, so anyway.
I'd have a similar question, John.
Yes, Peter.
I'm not sure of the output of my alternator. It was put in by a previous owner, so it's an aftermarket alternator. It looks beefy enough, but I've no issues with it. But I've often scratched my head and wondered.
Well, you don't know you don't know what it'll put out unless you full field it, and as long as your battery's not going dead, you're home free.
No, it's not. That's all good, and I've got a pretty.
And it should be charging at 14 volts with the headlamps on, and if it's there, you're all set.
Oh yeah, I mean I've left it alone. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
John,
That's a good line.
Put that question in the chat.
Oh, here's Tony.
Yeah, John, the reason why I put that question in the chat was I had an alternator in my TF. It's one of those generator alternator looking
Yes. Yep.
units. And I drove home and I had the ignition light come on while the car was running. So I knew that the alternator was going bad. So I did the check on the diodes, and sure enough, I had a bad diode. So I pulled that one out, and I had a spare. Now, if you go online now and try to buy one of those alternator generator types, they're up around $800 now.
Oh my gosh.
So I decided I would look around, and I found one in my basement that I had used years ago, and I put it in, and it works fine. But I don't know what amps are coming out of it. So that's why I was wondering, how can I test to know if I've got a really good generator alternator working in that car?
14 volts. 14 volts with the headlamps on.
But the headlamps on.
Then that
Okay.
if it's suppressed, if it's 13.2 or something, it's not making it can't keep up. So
Okay, so
that's the bottom line.
get the amps. Right. So then I don't test for amps, I test for the volts.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Lube up the steering column. I got that. Guy from Lucas years ago told my father that they have the best wiring in the world, but the world's worst connectors. Wires are wires, right? The guy said to electroplate the bullet connectors and the socket terminals with gold and to use conductive grease like GB Oxguard to prevent corrosion. Oh my gosh. And repeat this every 2 to 4 years. I don't remember the last time I had anything plated in gold. Um, so anyway, they work pretty well as long as they're dry and you put them together and even the ones up front behind the grill that are washed in water and in rainstorms and everything, they all just seem to be all right. But it all has to do with the connections. That is absolutely the truth. Brian Dawkins says, I wonder if bristle pipe cleaners with electric contact cleaner would be good for cleaning the Lucas bullet connectors. Sure, it would be. Um, and Mark B also says Harbor Freight has a cheap set of brushes for cleaning paint guns and airbrushes, and they work well. So the one that I bought was for a 22 caliber rifle. I put it in the end of the drill, and it had brass bristles on it. So if you're from New Zealand or Canada, chances are you can't buy 22 equipment. See, Ott and Beth, correct oil filter on a 78 MGB. It used to be Napa Gold 1068, but I'm not sure that that's a good filter anymore. We're going to talk about, Marty, make sure that you keep this up. Well, we're going to write about air filter or oil filters and fluids because man, that's a real problem now. And I haven't pulled out a 1090 1068 filter for a while. Somebody sent me a picture and it was too short. I don't know. Somebody else started making them. I don't know what the problem is, but they interfere with the tube on the MGB engine 70 through 80. Let's see, John, how do you feel about the high amp breakers at the battery to give the whole car protection from electrical short? I wouldn't hurt anything, I guess. 250 amps is a lot of amps. You'd have to have some dreadful problem to start drawing that kind of um, um, and somebody else wrote in and said it won't protect the whole car. There haven't been. I worked on a lot of MGBs, and so very few have got some sort of catastrophic damage. So let's see. In order to get David Basili writes, in order to get my hazards to work, I need to move the turn signal switch to either right or left turn with the hazard switch on. Why don't the hazards just come on when I turn on the hazard switch? I don't know, David. That's a weird one on me. but call me tomorrow. I'm real interested. I'm real interested in chasing that a little bit. That makes no sense to me at all. Um, let's see. What would cause a fuel
Hi,
gauge?
John. Hi,
Yes.
John. I had this problem many, many years ago, and I was working with a mechanic friend, and without saying a word, he said, "Go back home and buy a hazard switch and change your hazard switch." And when I pulled out the original hazard switch, it was covered in corrosion. And so I changed the hazard switch, fixed everything.
Okay.
Everything went back to absolute normal.
Thank you.
Oh, cool. I'll try that.
Yeah.
I have taken the original hazard switches apart, but there are like I don't know, four pieces, and every part has to go back in aligned correctly. So you got to do this on the kitchen table on a white piece of paper and keep keep real good track of what you're doing so you don't get something upside down. And then you can clean up the terminals on the inside with a screwdriver. Just scratch them until they're clean again. And then the rocker contact you can clean up with some paper.
Yeah.
I have done
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah. I just bought a complete new hazard switch
Yep.
from Moss.
Yep. The
You know,
problem with
plug and play.
yep.
I first installed it upside down, and my windshield wipers started running across the screen, basically in synchronization with the hazard blinkers.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good.
I thought it was too.
Hey, John,
So,
this is good again.
Phil, Phil asks here, what would cause the fuel gauge tach and indicators to suddenly stop working and then a bit later start working again? 71 BGT. Phil, that's a dirty fuse box. That's exactly what Tony came on after my whole long thing and said, don't forget the fuse box. So take the fuse box off the car, clean it, put it back on. You can get that four fuse box, 70 through 80, you can put on upside down. You find out immediately when you start the car up and turn the key off and it won't quit, won't turn off. You find out immediately it's upside down. But just look at the back of it. One of the top um, set of connectors has a bridge on it. So
Thanks.
let's see. Um, hit the dip switch and the left light goes out. Okay, so if you're hitting your dipper switch and the left light goes out, it means that the left light isn't working on that filament, and it could be a loose connection, green with blue with white or blue with red, or it could be that the bulb itself is burned out. So the other people have come in and answered that. Good night, everybody, says Tony. Ryan says, why would the brakes oh, we already did that. It caused the radio interference on that 74 midget. I'm really interested to find out. Um, somebody else says, how hard are you braking? Um, so anyway, a lot of people weighing in there. Brian Lieber says, glad you're doing well. Missed you in Altoona. I missed everybody at Altoona, but Jim was so nice. He sent me two posters that everybody'd written on the back. You know, get well, glad you're still alive, glad you didn't die. You know, better to see than to be seen. All the lines. So it was very very nice. Marty's got another note on here. Denny Ross says all my gauges that need power are not working. I suspect the voltage stabilizer, 1980 MGB. You can go up underneath there with a test light. The voltage stabilizer is just a little tiny unit above your left knee, up behind the tachometer. It's got a green wires on one side, light green with green on the other. You can take your 12-volt test light, test it, and make sure that the green side's hot when the key's on. It should be, because that's everything else: the wiper motors, the heater blower, the brake lights, everything else. And then the light green with green should wink on and off like a real crummy turn signal, unless it's a replacement Zener diode, and those just put out a constant 10 volts, or they don't work at all. And David Sander here says LED lights cause radio interference. Here's the answer. Okay, so the answer to that, don't run the radio. The sound of the engine should be music enough to your ears. Is there a special tool to crimp the bullet connectors? Phil Kalura asks, yes. And it used to, when I bought mine, they were like $150. It's like phenomenally expensive. There are two different types of bullets. There's a soldered and the solderless, or the crimped style. But I don't know if British Wiring still has that that crimper available or not. Um, let's see, Victoria, BC. I've got a 1980 with a cracked windshield. Oh my gosh. It's I've spent untold energy trying to find an installer. Can anyone help? So anyway, it's a good luck. I mean that's it. If you take the windscreen out of the car, you can find somebody to install the glass, most certainly, but putting it back in the car is a task, and that is tonight's understatement. Where did Lucas get all the bad comments? I've had a 69 midget, never had any issues. They have had the bumper sticker says, "Why do the British drink warm beer? Because they got Lucas refrigerators." So I got a call from Lucas out of the greater Detroit area. That's where their headquarters was. And the guy was incensed. He said, "I want to find out who's making those bumper stickers because we're going to issue a cease and desist and yada, yada, yada." And I didn't know who was making them. If I'd known, I wouldn't have told him. But about 10 years later, they called, same place, Mount Clemens, where Lucas was, and the guy goes, "Hey, we've got salesmen out in the field." They were selling a new Lucas product, aerospace kind of stuff. And he said, "We're looking for some of those bumper stickers that said, 'Why do the British drink warm beer?' to let them know what they're up against in the marketplace." So